Last one እያልከኝ the last summer ፊቲ ኢንቴ ቋጤ ኦብላ merci beaucoup bonjour this requirement management ትላለህ እስካለተ መስለታ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ከባድ ቋንቋ አለ ብለህ ታስባለህ? ምን ሊሆን ይችላል? ኦሮምኛ ዋይ
ሶማሊኛ
ዋይ
እና አማርኛ ምንድነው ኦሞቲክ እና ሰሜት ምንድነው ይባላል?
ቤዝዶን ምን ላይ ተመርኩዘ ነው እንደዛ እንትን ይችላል? ጥናት ላይ እኔ ላጥናበት አትረብሽኝ። አሁን ጥናት
ባይዘይ ኦሞቲክ እና ሴሜቲክ የሚባሉ ቋንቋዎች ያልተቀላል። ኦሞቲኮች ከባድ ናቸው። ኦብቪየስ ነው። ሴሜቲክ ቀላል ነው። ለምሳሌ ቀላል ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ካሉ ቀላል ቋንቋ ደግሞ ማለት ነው ትግረኛ፣ አማርኛ፣ ጉራጌኛ በቀላሉ እንለምዳቸው። ትግረኛ ለምሳሌ ዘፈን ከመስማት አለምድም
አማርኛ ስለምችል ያው ቃሎቹ አንዳንዴ ይገናኛሉ። በዛ ምክንያት ልለምድ ይችላል እንጂ በጭራሽ ኢምፖሲብል ነው ለኔ ምንም ቋንቋ ለመልመድ አብረ ብዙ ካልቆየው በስተቀር
የፈለገ ብቆይ ኦሮምኛ ለመስማት በጣም ከባድ በጣም ብዙ ኦሮሚያ ክልል ውስጥ እየሰራ ማለት ኦሮምኛ ይችላል። ኦሮሚያ ክልል ውስጥ በጣም ብዙ እየኖረው ብዙ ኦሮምኛ ይችላል
ስለማያወራ ነው
ስለማይችል ነው በቃ ስለከባድ ስለሆነ ለምሳሌ ትግራይ ክልል ሄዶ ግን የተወሰነ ጊዜ ቆየ ማለት ነው ትግረኛ በተወሰነ ለምዶ ይመጣል
እኮ አማርኛ ከሆነ የሚያወራው ወደ ትግርኛ ትንሽ ይገናኛል ለዛ እኮ
አይ እሺ
ደሃነደሩ ማለት አሁን ደሃነደሩ
እሺ ቤተመደቅስ
ቤተመንግስት መሸታ ቤት መኝታ ክፍል ቤተመደቅስ ደቅስ ስትባላውን ከኛ
አልጋ ቤት እንደማለት
እኮ ምን አልኩ ዛሬ ነው ይገናኛል ባይዘው ወይ ደቅስ ምናምን የሆነች
ደቅስ ባራድኛ እኮ ነው
እኮ
እና
ሰምቼው አውቃለሁ
ደቅስ ባራድኛ ሆነ እኮ ከተግሪዎቹ አምጥተውት ነው
እኮ ስለዚህ አየ የሆነ ቦታ ስለሰማሁት ነው እንጂ ማውቀው ቋንቋ ካልሰማው አታውቀውም በጭራሽ
በሮም
ሞተር ማለት ነው ሞተር ሳይክል ማለት
አንተማ ምንድነው መኪና ማለት ነው
ቪው ፕሮግራሚንግ ላንጉዌጅ ነው ምረው ታሪክ
በጣም
ምንድነው
እኮ አንዴ እቺ ከጨረሰች ሊሞላ አላዋራም ታውቃለህ ዘርጎላች
ለምን ሱማን የሚያነበብኩ ነበር አንተ በሽታም ከልጅ ባትረብሽኝ
ቻፕተር 5 ብቻ እኮ
የሚበቃኝ ምን ቻፕተር 5 ካልደጋገምኩ በስተቀር ምንም ልትይዟቸው
እና ተምራከዘው ተደጋግሞ እንጂ
a bit of classical fucking classical a bit of classical
ከለር ግን አረንበት አናገኝ
ወደ ነበረው ቨርዥን መልሶ
ፎንቱ
እና ሞክረው ወይ ፒዲኤፍ አድርግና ሞክር ለዛ ነው ፈተናዎች ማስደፍነው በቃ ከለር ስለማያደርግልህ አትደፍንም ፈተናዎችን አይገባህም ኖርማል የጋዜጣ ጽሁፍ ነው እሺ merci Easy.
Back something tayo na.
Gracias. ምን ታረጋለህ ወደ ጥናት ትገባለህ ስትገባ ምን ታገኛለህ
አንተ ተከታታይ ፒዲኤፍ ሶፍትዌር
requirement management is the process of managing changes to the requirement for a system. The major concerns of requirement management are Managing changes to agreed requirements, managing the relationship between requirements, managing the dependencies between the requirements, documents and other documents produced in the systems engineering process. Okay, so requirements can be managed effectively without requirements traceability. So requirement is traceable if you can discover who suggests the requirements, why the requirement exists, what requirements are related to it. ወይስ ያምር ወይስ የጥንት ትላለህ? እስኪ አዘርግን ያስፈልግሽ አውቃ ነው ያስታውቃል እኮ እንዳለ እንዳለ አሚን እሺ ላይቭ ስለሆንኩ ነው እንጂ በጠብጥ ነበር አሁን እዛች ጋር
አንተ ለበስ
የሰው ልጅ በጣም ግፈኛ ነው አይደል እንዴ ይውላ ጎተራ ውስጥ አስቀምጠ ነው ደግሞ requirement cannot be managed effectively without requirement traceability. A requirement is traceable if you can discover who suggests the requirement, why the requirement exists, and what requirements are related it, and how that requirement relates to other information such as systems design, implementation, and user documentation. So, case tools for requirements management. Requirements management involves the collection, storage, and maintenance for large amount of information. There are now a number of case tools available which are specially designed to support requirement management. So other case tools connection other case tools such as configuration management systems may be adapted for requirement engineering. So, word processor like Microsoft Word with templates, spreadsheets, Microsoft Excel as an example, industry strings and commercial RM or requirement management tools are IBM like TeleLogic, Doors, IBM Request Pro, and Borland Caliber RM is an example tools, and internal tools like GenSpec, Hydrocubic. I don't know what are they, but these are the tools for requirement management system. So open source, there are open source like OSRMT, you can Google it, and bug tracking tools, free or not, Bugzilla. You can use Bugzilla as a tool, and collaboration tools, free or not, maybe Tweaky. So requirement tool supports a database system for storing requirements, document analyze, and generation facility to help construct a requirements database and to help create requirements documents. So change management facilities which help us ensure that change are properly assigned and priced. Or traceability facilities which help us requirements engineers find dependencies between system requirements. So stable and volatile requirements change occur while the requirements are being elicited, analyzed, and valid, and after the system has gone into service. Some requirements are usually more subject to change than others. So stable requirements are considered with essential of a system and its application domains. So derived from the client's principal business activities, or the domain model, they can change more slowly than volatile requirements. Example, a hospital will always have doctors, nurses, and patients. These are slowly these change more slowly than volatile requirements. So volatile requirements are the in, specific to instantiation of the system in a particular environment for a particular customer at a particular time. Example, in a hospital, we can think of requirements related to the policies of the government health system. They might change often. So change factors are requirements, errors, conflicts, and inconsistencies, or requirements are analyzed and implemented. Errors and inconsistencies emerge and must be considered corrected. This may be discovered during requirement analysis and validation or later in the development process. Evolving customer end user knowledge of the system, or as requirements are developed, customers and end users develop a better understanding of what they really require for the system. So technical, schedule, or cost problems. Problems may be encountered in implementing a requirement. It might be too expensive or take too long to implement certain requirements. Certain requirements. So requirements change factors. One of it, changing customer priorities. Customer priorities change during system development as a result of a changing business environment. The emergence of a new competitor starts change its. So environmental changes. The the environment in which the system is to be installed may be changed so that the system requirements have to change to maintain the compatibility. Organizational change. The organization which intend to use the system may change its structure and process, resulting in a new system requirement. So requirement identification. It is essential for requirement management that every requirement should have unique identification. The most common approach is requirement numbering based on chapter or section in this requirements document. So problem with this are numbers cannot be ambiguously assigned until the document is complete. Assigning chapter or section numbers is an implicit classification for the requirement. This can mislead readers readers of the document into thinking that the most important relationships are which with requirements in the system section. Storing requirements have to be stored in such a way that they can be accessed easily and related to other system requirements. Possible storage techniques are in one or more word process files. Requirements are stored in the requirement document in a specially designed requirement database. So word processor and word processor documents advantage, they have requirements are all stored in the same place. Requirements may be accessed by anyone with the right word processor software. So it is easy to produce the final requirements document. It's easy. And disadvantage requirement dependencies must be externally maintained. The search facilities are limited. Not possible to link requirements with proposed requirement change. Not possible to have a version control on individual requirements. No automated navigation from one requirement to another. So these are the disadvantages. And requirements database. Each requirement is represented as one or more database entities. Database query language is used to access requirements, so it have an advantage, and its advantage is good query and navigation facilities. Using database, this is advantage for requirements. Support for change and version management. And disadvantage, readers may not have the software or skill to access the requirement database. بلا من አለብህ. The link between the database and the requirements document must be maintained. This is a disadvantage. Change management. Change management is considered with the process and standards which are used to manage changes to the system requirements. Change management policies may cover. Change management policies may cover the change requirements process, the information required to process each change requires. The process used to analyze the important impact and cost of change and the associated feasibility information. The membership of the body we firmly considered change requirements. The software, if any, for the change control process. The software supports, if any, for the change control process. So, some requirements, the change management process. Some requirements program is identified. This could come from an analysis of the requirements new customers need. Customer needs or በቃ ከሰዓት አድርገው ሰኞ ደግሞ አንድ ፕሮግራም ስለወጣ በዛ መሰረት ነው ሰው ሁላ ስኬጁል ያደረገው ያስደረገው በእርግጠኝነት ጠዋት ነው በራ ላይ ማክሰኞ ማክሰኞ ጠዋት ነው አይመቸውም በጭራሽ አይሆንም ያቱን ከተደረገ ነው ኮና ቴሌግራም ላይ ኮሜንት አድርጋጥለው ታዲያ ከፈለገ ምን ነበር ዛሬ ነው ቴሌግራም ላይ ስልኩ ለለቅለት እስካሁን ዋናው ላይ አልተለቀቀም አዛ አላ ያቆመ መስሎኝ ነበር እኮ መሄድ እሱ ልጅ እየሄደ ነው ማለት ነው customer need እሺ በእንትን ነው አሁንም ሜጋ 3 ነጥብ ምናምን ጂቢ ነው ፍጥነት ዳታ ማለት ነው ምን እንደሚያወጣ ታውቃለህ
4G ፕላስ ሙሉ የሚመጣ
ምሮ 4G ፕላስ
4G ስፒድ አለ 4G ፕላስ
5G ነው ከ4G ሌላ አለ እንዴ? So this would come from an analysis of the requirements, new customer needs, or organization problems with the system. The requirements are analyzed using problem information, and requirements changes are proposed. The proposed changes are analyzed. This checks how many requirements and, if necessary, system components are affected by the change and roughly how much will it cost in both time and money to make that change. The change is implemented. A set of a set of amendments to requirements document or a new document's version is produced. This should, of course, be validated using whatever normal quality checking procedures are used. Stages in changing management process. Identified. Problem analyze and change specification, then change analysis and costing, change implementation, and revised requirements. Change analyze and costing process. First, which we request change, then we check request validity. We can validate the request or we can reject the request. Then finally, find direct affected requirements. Then we list those requirements. After that, find dependent requirements on this change. So we then list again. Then propose requirements change. We propose. Then if customer information, we gather some customer information. Then after requirements changes might be rejected request, then or access cost of change. In cost information goes to access cost acceptability. Then customer information needed. It might be get rejected or it might accept changes. So this is a process. So change analysis activities. The change requirement is checked for validity. Customer can misunderstand the requirements and suggest unnecessary changes. We can reject that if unnecessary changes come to our request proposed. The requirements which are directly affected by the change are discovered. Then traceability information is used to find the dependent requirements affected by the change. The actual change which must be made to the requirement are proposed. After that, the cost making the change are estimated. Then negotiation with the customer are held to check if the costs of the proposed changes are acceptable. Then change requests rejected if the change request isn't valid. Okay, isn't valid. This isn't valid. This normally arises if a customer has misunderstood something about the requirements and the proposed change isn't necessary. Internet. If the change request result in consequence change which are unacceptable to the user, we reject it. If the cost of implementing the change is too high or takes too long, we can reject it. Change processing. processed changes are usually recorded on change requests, from which is the path to all of the people involved in the analysis of the change. What change requests forms may include fields to document the change analysis, data fields, responsibility fields, status field, and comment field may be included. So traceability information is information which helps you access the impact of requirement change. It links related to requirements and the requirements and other system representations. Skip available. አይጠፋም ድሮስ ዶሜን ካለ ማስገባ ስቶር እንዴት ነው የምትጠቀመው ታዲያ? ማይክሮሶፍት ኢሜል ስቶር የምትጠቀምበትን ማለት ነው። Forward from traceability links requirements to the design and implementation components. So backward traceability links to design and implementation components back to requirements. So there is linkability. Then forward traceability links to other documents which may have preceded the requirements documents to relevant requirements. So traceability table. The traceability table shows the relationship between requirements or between requirements and the design components. Shows in for relationships. So requirements are listed along the horizontal and vertical axis, and relationship between requirements are marked in the table cells. Traceability table for showing requirements dependencies should be defined with requirements numbers used to label the rows and columns of table. So this depends on R1. So the R3 is dependent on R2, requirement 2, and requirement 3 dependent on requirement 1, and so on. So traceability lists. If a relatively small number of requirements have to be managed, up to 250, let's say. Traceability table can be implemented using simple spreadsheet software. Traceability tables comes more and a problem when there are hundreds of thousands of requirements as the table becomes large and sparsely populated. So a simplified form of traceability table may be used where along with each requirements description, one or more lists of these identified of related requirements are maintained. So and traceability lists are simple lists of relationship which can be implemented as a text or a simple table. As a text or a simple table can be. So this is requirements. This is depends on. These are dependent, and as we discussed earlier, requirement 1 is depend on requirement 3 and 4. We can see here 3 and 4 requirements depend on 4 and 3 requirements. So traceability policies. Traceability policies define what and how traceability information should be manipulated. Traceability policy may be included the traceability information which should be managed. What's happened? Then techniques such as traceability matrix, which should be used for maintaining traceability. A description of when the traceability information should be collected during the engineering and system development process. The role, yep, that's great. The roles of the people such as the traceability manager, who are responsible for maintaining the traceability information should also be defined. A description of how to handle and document policies, quality expectations. The process of managing traceability information. So, that's